Yo, welcome to B-Boy Tech Report. Today what we're going to get into is the pocket operators. Now, there's been a lot of attention around the pocket operators since they were announced, maybe, I don't know, a week, a couple days before NAMM. Um, I went to NAMM, I got, an exclusive first look, and they look promising. Now, I'll tell you, before we even begin, something like the pocket operators is probably not my cup of tea, but I do understand that, there's a lot of b-boy tech gadget type dudes out there. There's a lot of cats out there that love gadgety, synthy sorts of things, and I'm also a fan of that kind of stuff. But when it comes to this type of device, probably not my cup of tea. But I can say that I see the appeal, and I know it's dope for a certain group of people out there. So let's explore them a little bit. The first thing I have for, let me just reach over here and grab this. The first one I have is the Sub, aka the PO14. Now that's the pocket operator that's basically the bass synth. So that's what we have there is the bass synth. There are three of them. There's the Sub, there's the Factory, which is kind of like the keys pocket operator, and then there's the Rhythm. That's the drum machine. Now all of them are pretty much designed the same, right? They have this little stand on them that lets you kind of lay it on there and it tilts it up a bit. It has this breakaway hanger here. Each one of them has a input and an output. They each take two AAA batteries, and they have this little display on them, right? The first question I asked when I saw them was, how safe is it? I mean, because it looks like you're literally holding a little microprocessor board, a motherboard of some sort. Let me stop that. The first thing I asked was, how sensitive are they? Do you run the risk of shorting them out? Because it literally looks like you're holding some sort of microprocessor in your hand, or I mean, a motherboard or some sort of circuit board or something in your hand. But I was assured that this is totally safe. You can touch this and rub it around all you want and it's not going to short out. All of the electronics are behind the display screen here, right? So if I put that like that and kind of bring it a little closer, you can see in the thickness there's the glass right there, but then underneath you can kind of see the electronics there. That's where all the electronics is, and it's all protected. You don't have to worry about it, right? But it does take two AAA batteries. It has a stand, like I said. There's three of them, and here's where the features overlap. One of them is obviously a drum machine. I have that connected over there, but we'll show it a close-up a little later. It's a drum machine. It's called the Rhythm, and that has 16 sounds in it. You can kind of mess with the parameters a little bit, kind of make those sounds sound a little bit different. And so that's the drum machine, that's the Rhythm. Now, with the Factory, which is the key synth, and with the Sub, which is the bass synth, they have a similar setup where they have obviously you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 through 16 buttons, and those are each sounds on the Rhythm. But on the keys, or should I say the Sub and the Factory, there are 15 sounds, and those 15 sounds are obviously button 1 there's a sound, and so forth and so on through button 15. But on 16 there's what they call a micro drum machine. So on the micro drum machine there's 16 sampled sounds. So right you are. The Factory and the Sub are not only synths, but they have a built-in micro drum machine. So there's 15 sounds each plus 16 drum sounds that are in the micro drum machine. So if you were thinking, I don't want all three, I just want the drum machine, maybe it might be an option to think about what the differences are. Maybe you might want the bass, the Sub synth, and it has a micro drum machine on it. So when you're making patterns, you can also include drum sounds. Obviously, with how small it is, you have to kind of go through and learn the ways of the PO, right? So with the PO, you have to know the keystrokes. If I want to change the sound, I have to hit sound and tap on the sound. Then when I'm ready to actually program something, I have to hit pattern and write. And there's a write button that's right at the bottom down there. and then you can hit record. And once you hit right, and that starts going through, you're actually working with a 16-step sequencer. So when it starts running, you can just tell it, I want 1, 5, 9, and 13. And obviously, if I'm correct, that's the 4 on the floor, right? So that's how you it's a step sequencer. So it's pretty intuitive. You know once you read the manual or even watch the getting started videos, you'll have a good idea of what you're working with right there. But they all have the same features across the board, with the exception of the 2 synths actually have a micro drum machine in them. They have 16 effects that you can apply to different patterns. It also has patterns. Let's see how many patterns it has here. Let's see. 16 patterns, obviously. So everything is based on 16, the 16 buttons on the front panel. You have 16 patterns, 16 effects, and 16 play styles. Okay, so the 16 effects, let's get down into that. The 16 effects are the same across each of the 3 devices, and I'll read them off to you. They are low sample rate, distortion, bit crush, delay, low pass filter, low pass sweep, high pass filter, stutter 3, stutter 8, repeat 8, repeat 6, note shuffle, feedback, parameter LFO, and vibrato. So those are the 16 effects. Each one of these devices obviously have 2 knobs there, right? Those 2 knobs can be tweaked. You got a pattern plan, you can go ahead and tweak those things. And what it says here is parameter A is note pitch, that's for the sub, and parameter 2 is length and tempo. Right, so each one of them has a different thing that they do. And I'm just going to read this off because I don't want to give you misinformation. So on the PO16, aka the factory synth, those are basically the same. Knob A and knob B are parameter 1, note pitch, and parameter 2, length and tempo. All right, so you can save back. Actually, I've had these batteries. I've been to London and back. I've played these things on airplanes, and I think that's where they shine. I've had the same batteries in here for 2 weeks. I haven't even worried about turning them off. I've had them in my book bag. I've had them in boxes. I've actually had them in several different backpacks. And I know for a fact that a couple times I was in my car and I heard some buzzing or something, and these things were sounding off because something was pressing on them. So that's the kind of stuff you want to think about. You may want to get the carrying case, which I don't know how much the carrying case is, but it may be of interest to you, right? So this is the Pocket Operator. One of the other things I want to tell you is that you can do song mode. You can chain the patterns together. And speaking of chaining together, you can actually link the Pocket Operators together. So with a standard stereo cable, nothing special about this, it's just a standard stereo cable, you can actually link these guys together. So I'm going to put one in the input of the sub and one in the output of the factory. All right, so what you have now are these 2 guys linked together, ready to sync. There's a special thing you have to do in order to sync, and as you play with these, you'll get used to the keystrokes and things that you have to do. There's a keystroke to choose a pattern, there's a keystroke to change a sound, there's a keystroke to program a sound, there's a keystroke to do everything. There's also a keystroke that you do to program this to have a certain sync number and this to have a certain sync number, so that the click track can come from one and go to the other and sync together. Same thing with having all 3 of them, which I have over on the table here. But let me just speak a little bit on what you have to set these to in order to sync them together. And like I said, I'm going to read that off because I don't want to give misinformation. All right, so when you put these in sync mode, what you have to do is you hold this button just up under the parameter knobs. You hold that button and then you press in the, I think it's BPM or something like that. But once you read this, you'll see what it is. There are 5 sync modes. Default mode is sync 0. When in use, the signal will be split between audio, which is the right, and and sync, which is on the left. So the click track comes through on the left channel of the stereo cable, and the audio comes through on the right channel of the stereo cable. So I do know that you could send a click track from, say, your DAW, or you could send a click track from the MPC or your machine or something, and you can get these guys syncing right up to, you know, whatever it is that you're using. But you obviously have to have the volume right. You'll have to experiment with that a little bit. I thought I would do that, but you know, I don't have much time with these things, and I really just want to show you and give you an overview of the features, and I'm sure there'll be tons of videos and tons of people out there experimenting with them going forward. So bear with me. I'm gonna get to, you know, playing at least a little demo of what we might have here. But in order for you to sync these two, you have to have the stereo cables coming from each one, out one into the other, out that one into the last. And so if you're gonna sync 3 of them, you're gonna have to set the first one in the chain to sync 1. You set the second one in the chain to sync 5, and you set the third one in the chain to sync 4. And like I said, there's a keystroke for you to be able to do that. We're going to set these 3 guys to sync all together. Now the one on this side here on the left is the master. The other 2 are slaves. And the way you have to set these in order for them to sync together, you have to set them so that the first one is S1, the second one is S5, and the third one is S4. So this is how you do that. You'll see this. There's this little function key here. It's right up under parameter knob 2. That's what you want to press. That puts you in a position where you can hit the BPM button. And watch up in the upper right hand corner of the screen. When I press the BPM button, it's going to change SY0. That should be SY1 in order for it to sync. And I've pressed that so you can toggle through them. So SY1, sync 1 is what that is. We're going to make sure that the second one is set to sync 5 and the third one is set to sync 4. Here's how you do it. Again, you hit this button and the BPM button. Watch in the upper right hand corner of the screen. It's on SO. So we want to set that to S5. Boom. And this one, we want to do the same thing. Set it to S4. So we toggle through and set it to S4. So none of these are going to play. yo, in closing out this pocket operator joint, brought to you by Teenage Engineering, I just want to say a couple things. These are dope little machines. They may not be everybody's cup of tea. They may not be for everybody, right? That's obvious. But if you're the type that is a gadget fiend and you need to have gadgets at all times, and when you travel and you're getting around and you want to be able to lay some stuff down or even just tinker a bit, these are perfect little devices. Even good sound sources, because you can do random things with them, sample them, chop them, and do what else you want to do with them from there. And your trusty MPC or rhythm or whatever you may have you. The one thing I will caution is they're kind of twiddly little things, so you may run up on a situation where trying to get all three of them synced can be a little odd, weird, and for me at one point it was even a little frustrating, but it is what it is. I was able to get them synced. When I tried to sync three of them, the noise wasn't, I felt like I had a little bit of noise, but like I think I said before, that could just be the type of cables that I'm using, but you should be able to use any kind of stereo cables. I don't think I'm doing anything that's outside of the instructions, but I think what you'll end up having to do if you get these is twiddle around a little bit to really figure out what the right combination of circumstances are to make them all sing in harmony. And some people, I think, are not having any problems doing that. Some people may have the pocket operators. I think they're dope little devices. They're not for everybody, but they are great sound sources. And, as a matter of fact, the drum machine joint, you may want to sample those and, further affect them in your DAW or your MPC or whatever your beat making device is. So that's the pocket operators. This is B-Boy Tech Report. I'll check you out next go round. Peace. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to stick around. Follow me on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Get at us on all our social networks. And be sure to buy B-Boy Tech Report t-shirts on bboytechshop.com. Stop by the site, bboytechreport.com, and we'll be sure to keep them coming to you. All right. B-Boy Tech Report, pocket operators. Let's go.